I'm riding every ride at the Magic Kingdom, from the Jungle Cruise, Haunted Mansion, Pirates of the Caribbean, and more of the most famous rides on Earth, to the most futuristic roller coaster in the world, and so much more. To find out, is the Magic Kingdom actually that good? Or is it overrated? Starting with the park's newest and most controversial ride, Tiana's Bayou Adventure. If it looks familiar, it's because it replaced Splash Mountain a few years ago, and ever since, people either hate it for what it replaced, or just think it's not a great ride.
But I can't imagine it's gonna be that bad. Like, it's like 90% the same ride as Splash Mountain, just with a fresh coat of paint, I think.
It starts with us climbing up a little lift, then splashing down into the gorgeous bayou. We floated through it for a bit, then, after seeing a few people plummet down the drop, floated into this building where we came face to face with an unbelievably realistic animatronic of Tiana as we slowly climbed a lift. She tells us we need to find some musicians for a party. Then we dropped down a small drop that somehow managed to get me a little wet and floated through a garden.
Man, this is so chill. I hope it stays that way and there's not like a giant drop coming up or anything. Why did we have to get the ride?
We peacefully rounded a bend, then we got to watch as the log in front of us fell down a giant drop. And only a few seconds later, it was our turn, smacking into the water and creating a huge wave. I didn't even realize it, but we just floated into even more bayou. We floated past a dancing alligator, which might be the smoothest animatronic I've ever seen, before coming across a band of animals, and Tiana again, whose mouth was not moving. We made our way through some more bayou, then found Tiana, the alligator, and some more animals playing the instruments. We continued journeying through the bayou, and I thought this is when we were gonna meet the ride's villain.
Is this when the boogeyman comes in?
He did not come in, and instead of things getting spooky, we just floated through even more bayou, then saw Tiana again, who, in another absolutely incredible animatronic, says we gotta keep looking for more musicians. Then we come across this crazy lady who's cooking up some potions, laughs at us, and sends us down a pitch black drop, creating a big splash that somehow completely missed me. And I thought surely this is when the boogeyman comes in, right? He did not come in because, spoiler warning, he doesn't show up on the entire ride, which is a huge missed opportunity in my opinion, because he's like the best part of the movie. We floated past some big plants and a frog playing the bongos before going under some dancing fireflies and falling down yet another drop, which yet again somehow missed me. Some water bounced overhead as we floated past a frog playing a flower. Then we saw a huge version of Tiana and the alligator looking at us, which really confused me.
I feel like I missed something. Why are they so big? Are we small?
We're small.
Why are we small?
We got shrunk by that lady.
Have I been paying no attention?
So remember when that one lady laughed at us and sent us down a drop? That was us getting smaller. Now, for the life of me, I can't understand what the lady said.
Oh Lord, oh Lord. No.
But it clearly wasn't anything about getting small, and I didn't see anywhere else on the ride where this is explained. So shout out to my family for explaining this to me, because I would have never known otherwise. While I was still trying to figure out what was happening, we rounded a corner and started climbing up a massive lift, inching closer and closer to that drop. We went past the crazy lady again, then crested the lift, and before I had even a second to take in the view, started plummeting down the drop.
Oh! Why did we have to get the ride?
I felt weightless as we fell down, going faster and faster before smashing into the water, creating a huge wave and somehow drenching me, even though I was in a poncho.
Oh my God, in my poncho!
We floated around for a second, then went under a path, dropped under a little tiny drop, and went into a cave, only to burst out into a huge party. We saw all the animals we saw on the ride playing music as everyone danced around. Then, after seeing the crazy lady again, the ride was over.
Man, you know, I really don't know what to think about that ride. Like, that is honest to God one of the most confusing rides I've ever ridden. Had it not been explained to me, I would still be completely lost as to what the heck happened. But besides that, it isn't particularly something that I'm like fiending to come back and ride again, but I thought it was pretty decent.
Now from there, I wanted to go over to Big Thunder Mountain, but unfortunately it's closed for the entirety of 2025 as they are completely removing all of the track and putting new track in. So instead of doing that, I walked over to one of the most iconic rides on Earth, Pirates of the Caribbean.
This ride is so good that it spawned one of the largest film franchises in the world that has grossed billions of dollars. If you didn't know, the Pirates of the Caribbean film series is based on this ride. This came first and was so beloved that they turned it into an entire movie franchise.
The ride starts by going into some spooky caverns with these big echoey calls of following us as we ventured deeper into the caves, coming across a rock that looks like a skull and a beach that some pirates got shipwrecked on. Right across from that, we saw a skeleton that's somehow still alive and piloting a wrecked boat before coming across a talking skull who flashbangs us and sent us down a pitch black drop. Thankfully, I didn't get wet as we emerged from the darkness, where I came face to face with an enormous pirate ship that was attacking the town, which was returning fire of its own. Unfortunately, we were caught in the crossfire as one of the cannonballs missed and hit right next to us, creating a huge splash and drenching me. We floated past the big pirate ship and entered into the town, where we saw that the pirates ended up winning the battle and are now ransacking it looking for Captain Jack Sparrow. They were shooting people, drowning people, forcing people to stand in a line to be drowned, all while completely missing Jack Sparrow, who was hiding in the most obvious place possible. We ventured deeper into the city and came across pirates holding an auction, selling off everything but what people actually wanted. That, of course, being beer. And when we floated under a bridge, we saw that they probably got what they wanted and are now back to ransacking, or at least attempting to ransack and getting chased around because of it. We also see Jack Sparrow, who, yet again, is in a fairly obvious hiding spot, poking out of a barrel and getting a good look at a map, while the dude in front of him gloats that no one will ever be able to find the treasure without seeing that map. We sailed into a very dark corner of town and saw a very drunk guy trying to get a few cats to drink beer, who just kind of stood around because they're cats. Unfortunately, the rest of the pirates seem to have gotten a bit drunk too, because after we went under a bridge, we emerged out into the town, which is now completely engulfed in flames and rapidly burning to the ground, which, of course, they don't care about, because they're blackout drunk. We continued to journey deeper into the town for some reason, floating past some extremely jolly pirates and this guy's surrounded by pigs, before finding ourselves in a jail where we see the famous scene of the prisoners trying to bribe the dog to let them out of the cell, which, like the rest of the town, is rapidly burning to the ground. Finally, after bumping into a few boats, we saw Jack Sparrow surrounded by all the treasure the map led him to, which is in the jail for some reason. This might end up sounding like a crazy conspiracy theory, or this might be something that's already known, but I think this ride's story goes a little bit deeper than the surface. Remember how in the beginning we heard these big calls of dead men tell no tales? I think that's the ride's story. We are living a dead man's tale, and that tale specifically being one of those of the pirates that we saw dead on the beach at the beginning of the ride. We are literally dropped into presumably one of his last days and go through his life being part of a battle, raiding a town, lighting it on fire, escaping. That's all a tale from a dead man. And I might have just gone mad, but the more I think about it, the more it makes sense.
That is such a classic ride. Like, that has got to be one of the greatest rides ever made.
After that, I walked over to the ride right next door, which is also a classic.
The Jungle Cruise. As a kid, this was like my favorite ride at Disney. I'm so excited to get back on it.
If you're unfamiliar with the Jungle Cruise, it's a ride that is very dependent on the cast member you get as your skipper. They make jokes throughout the ride and can turn what's honestly a pretty standard ride into something absolutely incredible. Now, I do what I can on this channel to avoid talking about employees. I don't think it's entirely fair to broadcast an individual's work on any given day to a large audience. So for this ride, I'm gonna be the skipper, and I'm gonna take you on a tour of the famous Florida Amazon River using some of that famous Jungle Cruise humor. The ride starts by taking us into the Amazon rainforest, where it rains 365 days a year, so nearly every day. Almost immediately, we come across Inspiration Falls, which inspires you to go ooh, ah, and click that subscribe button before journeying out into the Congo River, where we're gonna see how far we can go. Get it? 'Cause Congo can go. Please laugh. It turns out we aren't going very far as we quickly stumble across a shop, but I don't see anyone operating it. Canoe? That was actually pretty good. We floated deeper and past a big snake, a blue jeep, and absolutely nothing else of note before leaving the Congo and entering into the Nile, which, as the name implies, goes on for Niles and Niles. And if you disagree, you would be incorrect. It's pretty big. We see an elephant, which, fun fact, has the best memory in the jungle. I wish I had a good memory like that. Then we see an elephant, which, fun fact, has the best memory in the jungle. It would be nice to have something like that. Right next to that elephant was this super rocky area. I actually have a few really funny rock jokes written down, but I feel like y'all would just take them for granted. We floated on down the river and came across the famous Schweitzer Falls. We'll be going over that a little bit later though. That was the worst section of voice cracks I think I've ever had in my life. We saw a crashed ship, which really goes to show just how hard it is to drive stuff like this. You think a monkey could do it? Well, I'll be. Finally, after going past some monkeys playing with butterflies, we made it to the main event of the ride, and arguably the most technologically advanced, most mind-blowing, most earth-shattering thing Disney has ever created, the backside of water. We got so distracted by the amazement of the backside of water that we somehow found an ancient temple, and for some reason, we decided to float on into it. Once inside, we come face to face with a tiger, which can jump over 20 feet. But don't worry, we're only 15 feet away, so he would jump right over us. As we go deeper into the temple, we see some snake-themed treasures surrounded by snakes, monkeys, and pots, before exiting out into an elephant bathing pool. And fun fact about elephants, they actually have the longest memory of any animal in the jungle. After exiting the bathing pools, we went through a bit more jungle, which actually gives me a good time to point out some of my favorite plants. I like that one's nice. Oh, I love that one. You know, that one's actually fairly underrated. Oh, I hate that one though, ugh. Then, after going past a hat shop, we docked back in Adventureland, ending the ride.
Man, that is such a banger ride. It's also such a classic.
From there, I went over to yet another classic Disney ride, the Haunted Mansion, which starts with quite possibly the most famous pre-show of all time, taking us into this normal-looking room with a few paintings. But after the door shuts, the room starts slowly stretching, getting taller and taller, revealing more of the paintings and how the people in them died. Then the lights went out, revealing a man hanging in the rafters above. The lights came back on as we hear the body crash to the ground, and the doors open up. We're ushered down a creepy hallway in an incredibly tight group before getting into our doom buggy and starting the ride, taking us into the halls of the mansion. First, we go past a few paintings that look normal but become spooky when lightning strikes outside. Then we entered into a huge library with tons of books and these creepy heads that stare at us as we make our way through the room and see a piano that's being played by a ghost. Right next to that room is a room with stairs going everywhere, and we see the footprints of a ghost walking on some upside down stairs. Then, after being looked at by tons of eyes, we come across this seemingly infinite hallway, and this guy who moves his face from a box back to his head. As we make our way deeper into the mansion, we see a ghost desperately trying to escape a coffin, go past tons of doors, see a demon clock, and this head in a ball who is casting spells, talking to ghosts, and awakening the spirits. And in the next room, we see those spirits she awoke having a party. They were running around, eating cake, and dancing, all while this guy was playing an organ. It actually looked like a great time. What didn't look like a great time though was what came next, as we found ourselves in a creepy attic. We heard the sound of a heartbeat as we slowly made our way through some wedding paintings, and in each one the man faded away, eventually revealing the bride who was holding a huge axe. We escape out of the attic and fall out of the house in a moment that a lot of people think symbolizing us dying, especially because next we end up where most dead people do, the cemetery, which is basically just a party filled with tons of jolly ghosts having a great time. Now, an interesting wrinkle I don't see many people talk about with this theory is how, before you die, everything is scary and spooky and sad, because as a human you don't know better and you see death as scary, but once you're dead you start to see it as a party. Finally, after chilling with the ghost for a bit, we get selected by some hitchhiking ghosts and see a tiny version of the bride, ending the ride.
I've said it getting off of the past 3 rides. That is such a classic ride. Also, I heard it in the voiceover a couple seconds ago. Apparently, I'm dead.
After that, I went on 2 rides that have permanently closed since this video's filming. That, of course, being the Riverboat and Tom Sawyer Island. The closure of these rides has been extremely controversial because a lot of people have a lot of memories attached to these rides. And seeing as I was able to film both of them, I figured, why not? Let's cover them in the video. First, I went on the Riverboat, and I'm gonna be completely honest, it really wasn't for me. It is exactly what it looks like, a slow-moving boat ride through the rivers of America. It gave some great views. I really liked going past Frontierland and Tiana's. The views of Big Thunder were also cool, but also made me very sad that I wasn't able to ride it. The highlight of the ride, though, was undoubtedly seeing the train crossing this bridge, because the train and boat started going back and forth with their horns. Other than that though, the boat just slowly circled around Tom Sawyer Island. Speaking of Tom Sawyer Island, that is where I went to next. And this isn't really a ride, it's an island, but I'm still counting it for this video because you have to go on a ride to get to the island. That being these rafts. And oh my god, these things sucked. Unlike every other boat in the park, these did not run on a track and they had to be manually driven and parked on the island, which took so long. It wasn't a long journey either, we just had to go across the water water, but it took 4 different attempts to dock at the island, which was really awkward. Eventually, I was able to step foot onto the island, and I actually liked it way more than I was expecting. I would just pick a path, go in a direction, and all of a sudden I'm crossing water on this floating bridge, or I'm trying to drink from the world's most powerful water fountain, or I'm in a fort where I'm shooting guns at Big Thunder Mountain. I didn't spend much time here, but I really enjoyed every second of it, apart from getting back on the raft. Now that said, I'm not terribly upset that this stuff is closed. I enjoyed my time on the island, but I wasn't clamoring to come back. Same with the boat. And the replacement for this area looks sick. Cars Land in California is one of my favorite theme park lands ever, and I am so excited to see another one being built. This genuinely could be the best theme park land ever created. After I got off the island, I remembered that I forgot to ride the Aladdin ride back in Adventureland, so I went back over and got in the surprisingly long line, only for the ride to immediately break down. So I got out of line and went over to the train, which I was planning on taking over to the Tomorrowland station, because the train goes through Tomorrowland, so surely there's a stop there, right? First, we stopped in Frontierland, then we made our way through the backcountry of the park, where I think the new Villains Land is gonna go, before stopping in Fantasyland and setting off for the next stop, Tomorrowland, right? Well, there's Tron, and there's Space Mountain, and we are not stopping. There is not a train stop in Tomorrowland. So when I made it back to Main Street, I had to get off the train, then walk all the way back over to Tomorrowland, where I came face to face with one of the most iconic coasters in the world, Space Mountain.
So I'm gonna be completely honest, I was not a big fan of this ride when I rode it in California, but apparently despite this looking almost identical to it, this is a completely different coaster on the inside. So who knows, maybe I'll actually enjoy this one this time.
It starts with a fairly weird line, taking us down, then having us walk back up before going past these trippy hologram things and into this huge super blue room where, on the ceiling, we could see outer space, which we're gonna be traveling through on the ride. And after waiting about 30 minutes, I climbed into the weird inline train and started the ride, dropping to darkness, then jumping to space in a cool tunnel that was so tight I feel like I could have reached up and touched the ceiling. At the end of the tunnel, we violently got yanked to the side, then flashbanged as we started climbing the lift. Halfway up, another train dropped next to us.
Oh my god, that scared the life out of me!
We climbed past a spaceship with a few astronauts and mission control before reaching the top, going down a little drop and getting thrown to the side as we entered into the extremely dark coaster. We went straight for a second, then sharply dropped down and slammed into a turn that, due to the darkness, I didn't see coming. We twisted around, then rose up and popped into another turn, spinning around and shooting out into some straight track that felt really fast in the dark. Suddenly, we smashed into a turn, throwing me to the side.
Lord, it feels like we're going way too fast!
Then flew up into a little hill that popped me out of my seat a bit.
Oh!
Then entered into yet another turn. Out of nowhere, we fell down a wild drop.
Whoa!
We went straight again, then plowed into a super janky turn.
Oh!
Went straight and hit another one.
Oh, God!
Before falling down a wild drop.
Whoa!
Ejecting me out of my seat, then smashing into a turn, going straight, turning, and falling down another wild drop.
Oh my God!
Rocketing forwards and spiraling up a helix that pinned me to the side of the train. We hit some brakes, slowing us down a bit as we fell down a huge drop and ripped through another shockingly forceful helix before going through a few more turns, another helix, going through this red tube, hitting the brakes, and slowly making our way back into the station in the pitch black.
Okay, you know what? I was not expecting to like that ride. God, that was so fun. That was like a wild mouse on like not just steroids, but stinking crack cocaine. That was insane. I know it's not gonna come across well in video, but that was one of the most out of control things I've ever experienced.
Also, this coaster somehow manages to do wild mouse stuff in a way that's actually comfortable and fun, as opposed to literally every wild mouse I've ever ridden that all managed to be the worst thing ever created. After that, I could have gone over to Tron, which is one of the coolest looking coasters in the world, but I decided I was gonna wait till it got dark to ride, because for as cool as this looks in the day, it looks like 500 times cooler at night. So instead, I went over to a different ride in Tomorrowland, which is actually one of the most underrated rides in the park, Buzz Lightyear.
This is a shooting ride, and I normally suck at shooting rides, but I can feel something. Something is in the air today. I'm gonna steam some ham, I'm gonna break some records, I'm gonna get the biggest goddamn score you've ever seen on this ride, or I'm gonna walk off this thing with a score of 32.
In the line, we came face to face with a huge Buzz Lightyear animatronic animatronic, telling us that Zurg is attacking. Then we boarded our spaceship and started the ride, which immediately grinded to a halt like 6 feet outside of the loading area.
What a banger start to this ride.
We sat there for a second, then suddenly rotated to the side and started going forwards, rotating around a disco ball and bursting out into space where we were in the middle of a huge space battle. We shot at this robot for a little, and somehow I already had over 100,000 points. We spun around and tried to shoot this saw, then I noticed a target on the hand above us, but I wasn't able to hit it as we backed up onto an alien planet. I shot this thing a few times, then I tried to hit the volcano, which is super far away, and I figured it would give tons of points, but I don't think I managed to hit it. We backed up a little bit, then went deeper into the planet, coming across tons of aliens. I shot at this thing for a little, then went back to focusing on the volcano, and somehow I was able to hit it not once, but multiple times, gaining another nearly 100,000 points. Then shooting at something else and going into Zurg's ship, we came across the big man himself, then we grinded to a halt yet again. I tried my best to hit some of the targets while we were sitting there, but I feel like they must have turned them off or something, because I know dang well I was hitting the targets, but it just wasn't registering any points. Eventually the ride turned back on, and we slowly made our way in front of Zurg, and in the process I somehow hit something that gained another 100,000 points. I think it was this little target at the bottom, and I somehow grazed it while adjusting my gun. We backed up away from Zurg after accidentally steaming his ham and started spinning around, because if you didn't know, this ride actually has controlled spinning, so you can choose where your vehicle points by using this stick. We just wanted to spin for a bit though. We spun our way into outer space in a scene that I'm not going to talk about because looking at it is making me really dizzy, even though it did not affect me on the actual ride, which is good because yet again we grinded to a halt.
What a banger middle to this ride, eh?
Eventually we started going again and found ourselves face to face with Zurg's huge attack ship, flashbanging us repeatedly as we shot at it. I managed to hit a few targets, and as we exited the room, I saw that my final score was just a cough over 500,000 points.
When I said initially that I was gonna steam ham, go crazy, get 1 billion points, I thought I was gonna walk off this thing with like 20,000. 500,000 is insane. Like what? What did I hit?
I'm gonna be completely honest, this was one of my favorite rides in the park. It is just so much fun riding through, finding new secret targets, and trying to beat my high score, which as of the moment is around 1.2 million points. Now, as of this video's release, this ride is actually closed for renovations for the next few months, which I'm actually super excited about. They are literally adding a whole new scene and replacing the guns so that they're handheld instead of being mounted. Also, on the topic of renovations, when I was there, the Astro Orbiter was heavily under renovation. Like, the entire thing was just stinking gone.
Update, this video has taken so long to make that as you can clearly see, it is back open. It is actually really funny how you have to get in this because it's so high up. You have to wait in the line and get in an elevator and then you can ride the ride.
Right across from Buzz Lightyear was the entrance to the People Mover, which, despite being a fairly simple ride, has quite possibly the biggest cult following of any Disney ride in the world, and I wanted to find out why. So, after waiting in the surprisingly long line, I climbed aboard the moving couch and started the ride, which is basically like an 11-minute long tour around Tomorrowland, giving me a chance to kick back, relax, and take in some stunning views of the park at sunset. This might be my favorite time to be in a theme park. Don't get me wrong, being in parks at nighttime is cool, but this level of lighting is just unbelievable. We went past the castle, then into a building where we got to see the original plan for Epcot, which is actually considered to be the best Disney World park. And in my next video, I'm finally going to be visiting it and putting it to the test to find out just how good it actually is, including the brand new Test Track 3.0, a coaster that is apparently the best coaster Disney has ever created, and so much more.
Why is he the moon?
So subscribe if you want to see that. Anyways, after seeing the Epcot concept, we burst back out into daylight, and wait, what happened to the sunset? Yeah, so halfway through my first day at the park, I got walloped by the worst case of the flu I've ever caught. So I ended up stopping recording and going back to the hotel to lay down. I genuinely felt like I was about to die. So the rest of this video is going to be happening on I kicked off day 2 by getting yet another ride on the People Mover, which I completely get the hype for. There is something special about going around above Tomorrowland, despite how unbelievably boring it sounds on paper and looks in video. It does have some bits of excitement to it though. It takes the turns kind of fast. I never thought I'd be hyping up a ride turning at 5 miles an hour, and it goes inside of Space Mountain with views of the lift and, if you squint, the ride itself. Then it goes past more of Tomorrowland, goes past the alien planet from Buzz Lightyear before giving even more views of the castle and returning back to the station. From the top of that ride, I could see a bit of Tron, which yet again still looks awesome, and the ride next to Tron, which looks not awesome. The Tomorrowland Speedway, which is a quote-unquote futuristic version of the classic old-timey car ride that I was not excited about riding.
Man, if there is one thing I want to do after driving 16 hours to Disney, it's drive. Let's let it rip. Yeah!
It starts by slowly driving forwards. Then we entered into a turn where I was allowed to kinda steer the car, and by steer I mean try and turn and just end up painfully bouncing the car off the track. I bounced my way along as we raced past the path, then I continued turning as we went past Tron, then encountered the first of the ride's bumper-to-bumper traffic jams. We slowly made our way under a bridge, then, as it looked to be clearing up, slowed to a stop, yet again with even more traffic.
Traffic on the roof coming in, traffic in the park. God dang, man!
Eventually, after a lot of traffic, we started to flow again, and we were back to the races, turning around, then turning the other way in a turn that pinballed me off the track a few times before we, yet again, hit bumper-to-bumper traffic. We were here for a really long time, too. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the traffic ended, and I made my way back to the station.
Well, that was something, and what that something is a goddamn I-4 simulator, which if you've ever been to Florida, you know that road has the worst traffic on Earth. It's terrible.
After that, I wanted to knock off a few smaller rides, so I spun like a madman on the teacups, which is a deceivingly intense workout, rode the carousel, then went on Small World, which is extremely long and only a little bit creepy, and went on Dumbo the Flying Elephant. That's one of the most common types of ride in the world. They literally have 2 other versions of this ride in the same park. Dumbo let me off right next to the smallest coaster in the park, the Barnstormer, which was actually my first ever coaster, so I was actually kind of excited to ride it, and thankfully I didn't have to wait long, because there was literally no wait. It starts by slowly climbing up the small lift, crashing through a building and dropping to the ground, only to twist up and fall back down. We turned around, dropped down a tiny dip, then popped back up into a shockingly rough turn that threw me around. We slowly rose back up, then crashed through a billboard and hugged the ground as we turned around before hitting the brakes, ending the very short coaster.
Oh, that's it? That's so short.
From there, I went over to yet another ride that was super important to my childhood, Winnie the Pooh.
So remember how earlier in the video I said that Jungle Cruise was my favorite Disney ride as a kid? I lied. Jungle Cruise was my favorite Disney ride as a tween, whatever you call like a 12-year-old. This was my favorite Disney ride when I was like a kid. So I'm genuinely so excited to get back on it. I don't expect it to be amazing. I don't expect it to blow my mind, but God, I hope it's at least a decent ride.
It starts by going through the pages of a book and into the 100-acre woods, and the amount of nostalgia I got from seeing this first scene is unlike any ride I've ever experienced before. We turned around and saw Pooh, then everyone else dealing with the effects of a super windy day, eventually finding our way through Owl's cabin that was rapidly falling apart and entering into the darkness, only to come across Tigger. Our ride vehicle started bouncing as we followed him into the dark forest, hitting me with another huge blow of nostalgia. We stumble across Pooh and go into his house just as he fades to sleep in a scene that blew my mind as a kid. We turned around in the darkness and entered into his trip of a dream, seeing a living Jack-in-the-Box things, a cannon dude, an elephant, a hot air balloon, and some living watering cans that poured down rain, flooding the woods. Our car starts bobbing like a boat as we float past everyone else trying to stay afloat, then see Pooh stuck in a tree before bursting through a wall to see everyone holding a birthday party, and Pooh, who was still stuck in a tree. ending the ride.
So before I got in line, all I said is that I wanted this to be a decent ride, and that was a decent ride. That was a good time.
After that, I went over to what is hands down the most popular and busiest ride in the park, the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train, which, despite having an average wait time of well over an hour, a lot of people say kinda sucks.
This coaster has a reputation as one of, if not the most overrated coaster Disney has ever created. I'm gonna be entirely honest, it doesn't look that bad. It doesn't look special by any means. It looks extremely short. There's a little bit of coaster on that side of the mountain. There's a little bit of coaster here. Though something happens inside of the mountain there, so maybe it goes crazy in there or something.
It starts, as expected, with an ungodly long line, or rather, not a long line, but a slow line. On paper, this line really shouldn't be that long. It's basically just this series of switchbacks inside of a hut, and the line leading up to that, and the line outside, but this is seriously not a physically long line, at least as far as Disney lines come. The problem is, they were letting in 3 Fast Pass people for every 1 standby person, which does kind of make sense, seeing as Fast Passes for this ride are like $12 a person per ride, but still, I try not to complain about Fast Pass people getting priority like this in videos, because this is just standard in theme parks. But on this ride in particular, it's just really painful to see, because I know this line can absolutely fly without Fast Passes. On another day, I got in line about 10 minutes before the fireworks, and I was on the coaster during the fireworks, which is awesome and something I totally recommend doing if you have time, but I waited maybe 20 minutes tops, and the line was all the way through the switchbacks. It's just really annoying to physically see just how little Disney cares about everyone but those who fork over extra money on top of the $200 they already spent to get into the park. Anyways, after waiting about 90 minutes, I finally made it to the station, and thankfully the coaster itself didn't make me wait for stuff to happen as we dove out of the station and down a drop that came out of nowhere, bursting out into the light and turning around, then starting to climb up an incredibly fast lift hill. Before I knew it, we were already at the top and dropping down a tiny bit, then twisting to the side and falling down a kinda small drop. We swerved through a quick turn and bounced over a little hill, then hugged the ground, turned around, and quickly twisted the other way, rising up, dropping back down, snapping to the side, and turning up into the mountain, where we entered into the famous Seven Dwarfs mines. We went past this guy with diamonds for eyes, then saw a few other dwarves mining for diamonds while singing about mining for diamonds. We rolled deeper into the mine and saw this guy who called to all the other dwarves that it was time to go home. Then, as we climbed up a second lift, we saw their shadows as they did just that. This lift was a fair bit slower than the previous one, slowly climbing up, then grinding to a stop for some reason. Thankfully, I didn't need to sit there for long as the lift kicked back in and sent us down a little tiny drop, giving us a gorgeous view for a second as we plummeted down a surprisingly large drop that turned into a turn, rising up and twisting to the side. We flew over a bridge, then dropped down into the best part of the ride. We swerved to the side, then suddenly swerved to the other side before whipping back the other way and through a slightly forceful turn before we violently hit the brakes.
Oh my god!
So, I don't really know what to think about that coaster. I'm not underwhelmed. I'm most certainly not overwhelmed. I'm just whelmed. Like, that is exactly what I expected it to be. It's not crazy. It's not wild. It is very short, and it doesn't really do anything that exciting inside. Like, the very, very end of the ride is by far the best part of the ride, and if the entire coaster was just like this back-to-back section there at the end, this would actually be amazing. But it's just too little too late.
Following that, I went over to one of the most confusingly hated rides in the entire park, the Little Mermaid.
I'm not entirely sure why, but a lot of people online really don't like this ride. But nobody ever explains why it's bad. They're all like, oh yeah, Little Mermaid, am I right? Why is it bad? So I'm gonna go find out. Or maybe it won't be bad. Maybe it'll be great. I don't know.
It starts with us going into a shipwreck and seeing this bird who's kicking back and recapping the story of the Little Mermaid movie. Then we spun around and went underwater with a really cool effect that only slightly made me need to pee. We kept going deeper into the ocean and past a fish, then seeing the mermaid herself above us. We spun around and saw her looking at her human stuff. The animatronic here has clearly seen better days. The way the mouth just hangs open is really unsettling. We continued going deeper into the ocean, going past a ton of fish and a palace before bursting out into a huge scene with a ton of fish all having a grand time singing about just how fun it is to live under the ocean. And after partying for a bit, we went past a big fish playing the saxophone and came across Ursula's lair. We saw a few eels who tried to scare us, then a few weird worm things before coming across Ursula herself, who's one of the largest animatronics I've ever seen. She's plotting to steal Ariel's voice and turn her into a human, and when we turn around, we see her doing just that. We rise out of the water and come across her and a dude in a boat about to kiss. Then we jump like 30 minutes forwards in the movie to see Ursula violently dying and them two getting married while some fish party and the king watches on, ending the ride.
I genuinely do not understand why people hate that ride. Like, is it the most mind-blowing, awesome, most like sensory overload ride of all time? No. But is it bad? No. I don't get it. Like, it could use a little bit of renovations here and there. Some of the animatronics were definitely worse for wear, but I genuinely do not understand why so many people online hate that ride.
When I got off of that, there was only a few more rides to ride, and unfortunately, the next one is one that I really hadn't been looking forward to riding, Peter Pan.
So I'm not gonna lie, out of every single ride in the park, I have been dreading riding this all day. Not because it's a bad ride, at least I don't think so, but because the line is that of nightmares. This is one of the oldest rides in the park, but it almost always has one of the longest lines in the park. Right now, I think I'm gonna luck out, and that's because the line is only 45 minutes, which is the shortest I have ever seen it.
Now, when I got in line, I was prepared to slog through one of the longest lines I've ever waited in, so I was shocked when I literally walked through like half of the line. I only needed to wait in this one room and a little bit outside. The sign said 45 minutes, but after only like 20 minutes, I was already on the ride, which uses a fairly special ride system, hanging the cars from the ceiling, meaning that when we left the station, we started flying. We flew over a bedroom, then out a window and over a village, with the buildings beneath us getting smaller and smaller until we were flying over London. We flew over the Tower Bridge and past Big Ben before flying off towards the moon. Then we soared over Neverland, going over Captain Hook's boat and past some mermaids. We went past a few Native Americans, then saw a huge skull-shaped rock and stumbled our way into a big battle on Captain Hook's boat. Everyone was tied up as Peter Pan and Hook were fighting above us. Then we turned around and saw that Peter Pan had won and taken control of the boat. We flew off the boat and saw what happened to Captain Hook before seeing the boat fly away, ending the ride.
Okay, so I don't really know what to think about that ride. Like, it was a very short ride, and it is not a modern ride by any stretch of the imagination, but it was also just kind of cool. Like, I actually kind of enjoyed myself on that, especially because I only waited like 20 minutes. Had I waited like 30 minutes or 40 minutes or 50 minutes, 60 minutes, 70 minutes, or whatever this line's normally is, I think I would have a much different opinion on this.
I feel like a major reason the line for that was so short was because everyone was going over and finding a spot for the fireworks, and seeing as there was a little bit of time before they happened, I decided I might as well check them out too. So I rushed over and managed to find a truly unbelievably good spot. Now, the fireworks here are more than a traditional fireworks show, because they also have some really cool projections on the castle, transforming it into a different castle and being able to use it as a fancy projection screen to add more depth to the overall show. And this is a stankin' incredibly good show. I'm not going to talk about it too much here, just because for shows like this, it is a far better experience just to watch it in its entirety, especially when a show relies on copyrighted music as heavily as this one does. But I need to talk about it for just a second here and show y'all some highlights, because this is undoubtedly the best fireworks show in the entire world. As I mentioned, some of the show happens on the castle itself, not just transforming from one castle to the other, but also having characters appear on it, and at times being a character itself. Like halfway through the show, the castle itself becomes sentient and sings for a little. Then it turns into a bunch of genies in one of my personal favorite parts of the show, before the spire gets turned into a rocket and blasts off. And this is not a projection show, it also features some of the biggest and most interesting fireworks I've ever seen, like a Moana logo during her section, a multicolored thing that shows up in another, and a ton more unique firework designs that I've never seen before. And this show does not let its foot off the gas with the fireworks. The quantity of them is kinda staggering. There is always something going on, which is even crazier when you consider that it keeps this up for the entirety of the 18-minute long show, which somehow manages to not get old. And I think that mostly comes down to it actually somewhat having a story and having some incredible pacing, going from the most breakneck, super fast-paced, crazy scene I've ever seen to a slower, more somber scene in seconds with incredible success. When they switched from that genie scene I mentioned earlier to one with Olaf, there was an audible that went out across the crowd. This show literally does every single thing to perfection. Even though this may look like the end of the day, the park was actually still open for 2 more hours, meaning it was time to go over and do what might just be the single coolest coaster I have ever seen, Tron. After I fought my way through the absolute running of the bulls, that was every single other person watching the fireworks deciding to do the same thing. The line for this coaster gave me some incredible views of the coaster as it soared overhead. Then we entered into this blue area where we saw a cannon-looking thing before walking down a futuristic hall and into a massive room where we can watch the coaster launch, which looks awesome. There's supposed to be a little pre-show before this where we're all transported into the world of Tron and the wall disappears in front of us to reveal that launch, but they had it turned off for some reason. Anyways, after snaking through a bit more line, we put our bags into a free locker and entered into the station. But first, before we ride this, there is still one more ride that we haven't ridden yet, the magic carpets of Aladdin.
Trust me, I want to be doing Tron too, but I mean, hey, I said I was gonna ride every ride, so here we are.
Anyways, the station for Tron was sick, and I didn't have to wait around for long because before I knew it, I was climbing into the trains where you have to ride in this weird motorcycle position that's kinda uncomfortable. Also, unlike every other ride in the park, the only way I was allowed to record this coaster was with a chest mount, so it's gonna be a bit rough.
This might be the worst angle I've ever recorded at. Oh my god, this is bad.
We shot out of the station with so much speed it kind of felt like a launch and turned to the side, pulling up to the launch track only to see that there was already another train there.
Why is there people there?
We sat there for a while, then we got to watch them launch, which looked so much crazier than it did in line.
God. Oh, that looks crazy though. I don't think they were supposed to be there.
We slowly rolled into the launch zone, and I was getting more and more excited. Then the room started to count us down with the lights flashing around us, the music getting more and more intense, and then with the boom, nothing happened.
Initiate in 3.
Oh, okay, here we go.
2, 1.
The launch was way more forceful than I expected, throwing me back as we flew down the track, picking up more and more speed before bursting out and soaring over the path. We twisted around with the lights above us chasing us before diving down, then twisting back up and popping into a building. We shot through an energy gate, then dove down into the darkness, immediately whipping to the side and falling through another one. We twisted back up, went through a third, then went straight for a second and twisted to the side, diving out of the way of the orange team, which we're trying to beat. We soared through yet another gate, then snapped to the side and went through the 5th one, going straight and shooting down, avoiding the orange team again, who went under us, then crashed into us and violently exploded as we went through one final energy gate, ending the ride.
Okay, that was kinda insane. I know a lot of people have a problem with how short that ride is. I did not have a problem with that. I thought it was a perfectly fine length. That said, what I did have a problem with is once we went inside, every like 15 or so seconds, we would just go straight and slow down. Like, I know it's not gonna come across in video, but what would happen is we'd go down a drop or a twist or whatever, and then we just go straight for a couple seconds and slow down. And then we'd go down another drop or a twist or whatever, and then we just go straight and slow down again. And then we go down another drop and a twist, and then we just slow down again. Like, this thing starts out at 60 miles an hour, and it probably ends at 20 miles an hour, because they just kept slowing us down. Despite that though, I did actually really enjoy the ride.
So overall, would I say that the Magic Kingdom is actually that good, or is it overrated? And the answer is yes. to both questions. The Magic Kingdom is a fantastic park. It contains so many incredible rides. From the classics to the new stuff, even the filler rides are pretty good. That said, I have a really hard time recommending this park to people. This is a massive park, but it's also the world's busiest park, and unfortunately that means if you only have one day, it's gonna be really hard to do everything, and it's gonna be very stressful. I have a season pass, which in and of itself is not cheap, so I didn't have to deal with that stress myself, but most people only have one day, and really that's all I could recommend, because it costs nearly $200 per day per person to go into this park. Genuinely, if you're gonna spend that much money on one day, go to Disneyland. It's cheaper than the Magic Kingdom, plus they have more modern rides like Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway and Rise of the Resistance, which is one of, if not the greatest theme park ride ever created. Plus so much more in a less busy and less stressful park. They do have both of those rides at Disney World, but for that you need to go to Hollywood Studios, and that alone adds on like another $150. And what all of this really boils down to is that yes, the Magic Kingdom is a great park. Yes, I had a great time, but it's just so busy and so expensive that I just can't really recommend anybody go right now. Now, if you want to see more from Disney, you should check out this video from Hollywood Studios, where I ride some of the best rides ever created.